5 years ago, I decided with my wife to build a house in Vienna, where I live since 10 years now. And of course, we are in the prediction business, and so it had to be a little bit a different house. And we called it from the beginning the Future Evolution House, because the idea is that it never should be finished. Like, you know, the old Indians say, when a house is finished, you have to go away again. So we worked on it around 5 years. We planned. We had a lot of struggle with architects and builders and the sites and the neighbors and whatever you have in this kind of process of building a house. And since now 6 weeks we are living in it, and it's really, I can say, it's a great adventure, and it has a lot to do with, I hope, with future, with energy, and with all kinds of new energies. A lot of people ask me, how did you become a futurist? And maybe one of the reasons is that my father, who was a typical German engineer, was himself a futurist, without probably knowing that. In the after-war time, in the early 50s, from 46 to around my birth, which was around 55, he invented a fully automatic household in a very old building in Berlin, and which was still in ruins in this time. And he invented an automatic porridge cooker and a fireplace lighter. And he was in the press as the last man. You know, there's the first man, the Neanderthals, and then the last man is living in this fully automatic household. And this is my father, how he's sleeping, woken up fully automatically. He knew who was on the toilet 2 floors down. A young man with ideas. That was 1950. And my grandmother always told me that my mother was completely frightened that she would get an electric shock sitting on the sofa. So obviously there was some complication with automatic households. And this was the beginning somehow, when I discovered this story, of thinking in a new way about technology and daily living. So when I grew a little bit older, when I was around 15, 16, first moon landing, I wanted, of course, to live in space. Probably on the spaceship Discovery going to Jupiter. In the famous film from Stanley Kubrick, 2001, I saw this film, I think, 20 times every Sunday morning when the cinema was cheap. And it was a very, comfortable environment. This is Dave, you know, who lived in this final frontier, and he had a very nice computer who was talking to him and who was looking after him, and doing everything on command. This is how we thought in the 60s the future would be. We would live in space, in the orbit. A little bit of this is now already realized. This is the new window of the ISS. The astronauts of the International Space Stations fought for that because they only had very, very little windows. And I know Thomas Reiter, one of the German astronauts, very well, and he said, if you have 16 sunsets every evening, you have to have a good view. So they invested in these kind of panorama windows, so a little bit is possible for some people on the world. But anyway, we would live in space, we would fly through the air, we would have all these beautiful helicopters, and we would live forever and have no diseases and everything else. That was the future of the past. And if you come down to the question, how would people live in households, you have to look twice. If you see these pictures from the 60s, you can, easily find out and spot that there are some very basic ideas of men and women. This is a kitchen in the year 2000, which is basically now, and you can see the commanding man on the side. And commanding and controlling was a great fundamental idea of the technological age, of the industrial age, like with the cars we saw a minute ago. These are male control fantasies, and we knew from the beginning that we should make it a little bit different, because this is not happening anymore. What we can see here, you know, what is he doing? Well, he is having leisure time. What is she doing? She's making all the work. So this would not work with me and my wife, who is also a businesswoman, and we are both on our ways with 2 children, now a little bit older. So the main questions are, for us, how can we make a future house livable? Is the future a place you want to live in? These are really existing future houses in the moment, and there is nobody living in it. It's about a lot of remote controls you can't control because you don't know how to do it, but you have a video conferencing system between the loo and the living room. So whoever wants this? These are ruins of the future, like we can see. So we tried another way. We tried to ask social questions, not technological questions in the beginning. How does living change in the context of current megatrends? Megatrends like globalization, aging, we all get older, new media, mobility, megatrend women. And that is a little bit a different angle to modern architecture. And we asked, how can architecture help to organize a better family work-life balance? Because we all know this kind of stress when you have children and when you have a lot of daily routines and when you are very mobile, you have to find new solutions on this in these terms. What are houses for? What were they made in the past? So the beginning was a tribal society when we were all hunter and gatherers. It's not very long ago. And we needed caves basically to shelter against wild animals or enemies. Then the agricultural society came up, and with them you had huts which marked territory. And only 200-300 years ago people got some privacy in the classical houses we have now. You had the differentiation of rooms, so you had a living room and a sleeping room, which was basically all in one before. And what would be in the future or in the present in a knowledge-based society? What would be the function of a house? I think it's the basement of mobility. People are more and more mobile. And if you look into houses in all areas of industrial societies, you will find them very often empty because the people are gone, they are working, they are on their way. And so that means the houses become hubs. They become a kind of platform where you are based and not so much the 24 hours living room. And this reflects in the architecture, in the structure of the rooms of the house itself. This is the industrial living rooms. You can see that you have a very small working place for the woman, which is called the kitchen. You have the living room where you want to present all your wealth, with all these ugly furniture. And the guests are coming into that, and then you have this curtain of intimacy. And they're sleeping, and there's the so-called Nasszelle in German, the hygiene room, or whatever, however you call it. So what's happening now is that this is mixing in a new way. We have a lot of home offices, a lot of people are working at home, or partly working at home. You have an open kitchen, which is basically the new living room where you make communication. You also have radio there, or even a television, and you meet friends. And you meet friends for cooking and eating, and you have a media room, so the classical living room is dying out. And behind the curtain of intimacy, you have a kind of growing together of relaxing and wellness items and goals of people. So what we try to do out of it, we extended this idea, and we said we need distance from the children. If you have 13 and 17-year-old children, you know what I mean. I mean, I myself had also quite a tendency to loud rock and roll music, but they have much harder style. So you need a lot of distance, and you want to have some intimacy as a couple. You want to be also open to the outside world. So from this point where we meet friends, we go out into the world with a different mobility and transport devices. And in a little bit different, because we are a working couple, we have a company, we have our offices and our think tank. And this is how we made it in the end. We created 3 compartments. We were like containers. They're not very big. They don't have to be very expensive. And we connected and disconnected them in the same time. So you can close these areas so you are not disturbed, or you can open them. And in the distance, you have the work cube because you want to be concentrated sometimes. And this is how it looks. These were the renderings in the beginning. We experimented a little bit with glowing surfaces, so you can show how much energy the house is consuming or got from the air from the sun in the day. And this is how it actually really looks. And this, well, a little bit, you know, you have all these problems, of course, between man and woman. Should it be a spaceship or should it be more a wellness saloon? There are still some stereotypes in the world, but I think I made my game quite well. If you look at the Discovery in full speed and you see the side of the house, we are not so far away from it. So the houses have not numbers, but they have wordings on them. And this is home and this is work. And we are always making the joke, if the children are coming home from school, they always know what they have to do now, home, work. But obviously, you can orientate yourself, and if someone is coming, he can decide where he wants to go, or he knows where he has to go. So this is about work-life balance, separating a little bit, but not too much. And it's, of course, in a very fine, nice nature area with Vienna inside. So if you walk onto the roof, you can see Vienna center, but it's on the side of the Vienna forests, and at the same time it's a very green area. So you can collect mushrooms, and we had yesterday night we had some piggies on the new lawn, which was not very nice, but of course we love piggies. And so we try to get them away with some nice food somewhere else, maybe to the neighbors. This is the hub. So this is a kitchen which is basically reduced to its basics elements, and this is a very, very old part of a hut out of the 14th century, out of the Alps. So it's a combination of very modern and kind of nature architecture. And this is the bath saloon, so it has nothing what we know from the classical hygiene rooms which we have as a bathroom normally. And also there you can see, even if it's very feminine, you can see some parallels to the last part of 2001, which is the end scene in Kubrick's 2001. So you can always see that I try to get back to these good old times of the 60s. So we have some project which I just want to give you a short idea of it. We have around 10 future projects in it, and we are always in the beginning. It will not happen that it's ready, because technology is changing, and we built the house so that we can change the facade, that we can do a lot of working also with room architecture. But what we are doing now and what we are trying now, I can show you in 4 examples. First example is smart green design. A lot of green design is not very nice, to be honest. You know, it's sometimes you have the feeling people are trying to close out the environment. They want to be very, very isolated from nature because they don't want to spend energy. And this is why we made integrated solar panels. So the photovoltaic system is in the facade. You can't see the difference between the facade and the energy generating systems. We have, of course, the theme electric mobility. We have a Think, a little electric car from Norway. They are the only people, obviously, who can deliver electric cars. The other example today we had today. And we want, of course, to rebind the energy of the car into the house. So it could be a backup battery, and it could be a kind of virtual backup system. Energy in the future will work like that, as a kind of big network. Houses will produce energy, and the cars will be a part of the storing system, which you can use when you need it, when the wind is not blowing and the sun is not shining, and you will have a European electric grid. Only if we do all these kind of different productions of energy, of biomass, of desert energy production, we can make sense out of the modern energy system. We are working with new materials. For example, sometimes you want to come guests in, and sometimes you don't. For example, the children. if they come in and we want to be alone, we can close this window. It's an electric window you can just make visible or invisible. You can look through or cannot look through. We have new furniture which are printed out of 3D printers. We experiment with simplexity technology. Bill Gates, I think, said once that he has a problem that he's the only person in the world who gets an error if he tries to switch on the light. So what we try to do is to make very simple, basic, down-to-earth technologies. For example, always you have this problem to load up your bloody cell phone. And there are now technologies where you can do this without wire. So wireless technologies. And we want to create home apps. We are working with a company in Tyrol, a lifestyle foundation, on a system you can see here. We will build it in the next months. And this is a laser-based system where you have very simple symbols on the wall, and with a kind of iPod touch thing on the wall or the remote control, you can control different moods or different statuses, the temperature, whatever you want to do in this room. And in the end, we also want to have a new relation to nature. So what we implemented is a kind of convenience garden system. You know, that you don't use all your time to grow vegetables or potatoes or whatever you want, but we all like gardening. So we made these kind of containers where we can do this in a very convenient and easy way. And this is the tomato harvest of this year. So this is nearly as much as in Burgenland, but we are practicing on it. Technology is the answer to many questions nobody ever asks. I think we have to think different in a new way about technology and human beings. We have to rethink technology in a more human-centric way in terms of empowerment, in terms of simplicity, design, flexibility, simplexity. Thank you very much for your attention.